Joseph,
What's up, man?
how you doing, man? You
Oh,
ready
I'm
to talk
always doing
about
great.
ready to talk about some NFL and some sporting news?
Oh, yeah. Let's jump
Let's
right
do it.
into it.
Let's get some intro music. Welcome. If I'm not mistaken, this is episode 20.
Yes, yeah, it is. Oh,
Oh,
man, that is
I know,
crazy.
right? 20 episode we've done.
20. Oh, man.
Shout out to our few listeners that we have, but you are many in our hearts. And always remember, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to listen to Socratic Sports, and welcome. Like we said, to episode 20. Got a lot to talk about. Basis is the NFL, as always, since we are right now in the divisional rounds. And we're going to start with, but before we get to anything about this weekend, we're going to talk about last week, and we're going to start off with the coaching carousel that's still going on. The biggest news so far is, I guess, Antonio Pierce returning back with the Raiders. That's a good one. I seen that Bill Belichick is having his second interview. And also Jim Harbaugh is also having his second interview, both with Atlanta. And so Atlanta seems to be like a hot spot. And so what's your take on everything that's going on?
Yeah, so the Antonio Pierce was a great hire.
I think so too.
It seemed like it was going that way anyways, because I heard nothing about Las Vegas. I almost said Oakland. Las Vegas interviewing anybody else.
Yeah.
So good for him. Kudos to him hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
The Atlanta one is interesting because I don't see that as a premier destination right now. Mostly
Really?
well, what are they doing with quarterback? Like, I have no idea what their plan for quarterback is. So at least for someone like Bill, who at his age you would think would want to go to an immediate contender, Atlanta doesn't feel like an immediate contender. So I was very surprised to see that he was getting a second interview there. The Chargers makes more sense in my opinion. At this point, though, I think Jim is definitely going to take an NFL job. So I think at this point, you're either going to see, like, if Jim ends up with the Chargers, Bill will end up in Atlanta and vice versa. I don't foresee any kind of out of the blue, Atlanta decided to go with this person, or vice versa. Oh, Bill decided to switch over to Seattle or Tennessee or anything like that. I think more or less those will be the teams that he goes with. Like I said, I think Bill makes more sense for him to go to the Chargers. But, I mean, obviously he's more in the know than I am if he sees something in Atlanta that he could work with. Good for him. The last thing I'll throw it back to you, I'm a little surprised that Tennessee and Seattle, we really haven't heard anything about. It seems like they're awfully quiet on their end. Because what's left? So Tennessee, Seattle, Atlanta, Chargers. Washington. I forgot about Washington. And then obviously Vegas.
Oh, yeah, it's Washington.
Yeah,
because I was about to say, wait, it's not because I'm thinking Commanders and Redskins. I thought I said Redskins.
Yeah. No, it's just Washington. Yeah.
Yeah. And Panthers. Did we say Panthers?
No, Panthers.
Okay.
See, none of those teams have been making noises.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't heard anything out of those teams, so I'm just very surprised. I think the Panthers will be the team that all of a sudden, like, the next day, you don't hear anything, and then you'll get a notification that goes, Panthers are hiring so-and-so as their head coach. I think the Panthers will be the team that takes, like, a young, hip, kind of out-of-the-box hire. And once you get closer to Super Bowl, you start to see more and more the hires happen anyways, because a lot of these people are going to get hired are probably the DCs and OCs of these playoff teams. And
Mhm.
as they get eliminated, that's kind of when you start to see uh, them be announced that they're being hired. I'm sure there's contractual things that
Mhm.
go into that. But yeah, that's kind of my brief take on the coaching carousel.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one thing I do want to break up is what you said
Mhm.
about Jim Harbaugh. Like, you think that, there's not a doubt that he's going to take a NFL position. I mean, he is, again, two of the, for me, because I know what you just said about the Atlanta one, but I think Atlanta, again, two things with Atlanta for me. Once they find a coach, they have to find a quarterback. So you were spot
Mhm.
on with that. Those were my 2 points about the Atlanta job. If they find a quarterback after finding whichever coach, whether if it's Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, which I'm leaning towards Bill Belichick for that position. I think that's more likely than the Harbaugh one. But if Belichick can find a good quarterback, Atlanta is to be reckoned with next year. I think they have
Okay.
a pretty good defense. Their offense is spectacular. But again, they just needed somebody under that center that can lead them. The quarterback matters in this league.
Okay.
And so I think that. But back to my Jim Harbaugh point is, I don't. My only thing with the whole Jim Harbaugh thing is that I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to Michigan. I think, the amount of money they can pay him in the college game, to coach kids essentially in college, is, I mean, that's the driving force right there. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about. I mean, even though now he doesn't have to worry about anything, but I mean, this college money is serious money, especially
Yeah.
for coaches. I mean, there are coaches that has been fired in the past couple of years in college that is still making crazy money,
With the last
and
name,
so
for
why
sure.
wouldn't you want to go back to some? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep, great
Oh
point.
my
Yep.
God, Jimbo.
But then also, my second point to that is the other side. I think that Jim Harbaugh should look at also is what's been going on this week. I mean, we have teams like Dallas and
Mhm.
McCarthy, who, again, I mean, today we're going to talk minimum about the Cowboys, because every
Yeah,
single day on ESPN and Fox Sports and everywhere, it's been about the Cowboys'
I
loss. It's
know.
about what they're going to do with Mike McCarthy. It's just like, dude, they hired him, they got him
Yeah.
back. Oh, they didn't hire him, but they didn't fire him. So let's drop it. The Cowboys are out of it. Let's drop it. Like, leave it alone. We get it. They're America's team. They had a great team. They should have won. Blah blah blah. But we're over the Cowboys.
Mhm.
But the thing with Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys about, even though he won these games the past couple of seasons, winning 12 games almost every season, and but not winning a chip, they're ready to fire him. Nick Sirianni won the Super Bowl, went to the Super Bowl last year. Coached his butt off. Did it. I mean, yeah, he's kind of losing the team now, but still, you was in the Super Bowl last year, and they're ready to fire you. I think the thing with Jim Harbaugh is that you don't in college you don't hear that. You
Yeah.
play and then you retire. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
unless there's like a mutual disagreement where, Jim Fish, like, if they don't want to be a part of the organization, the college organization anymore, they just want to part ways, then fine, let's just do that. And then I'll just go somewhere else and coach another college team. But I think in the NFL, what's going on now is that even if you coach well and you don't, if Harbaugh takes over the Chargers, has a great quarterback. Your BFF.
Someday.
It's a really
Someday he
good
will be.
team. Someday, they have a really good team.
Mm.
But if he goes out and craps the bed next season and doesn't perform well with that team, he's going to get thrown under the bus in his first season, and he should have just stayed in Michigan. So, I think, yeah, he's interviewing just to see what's out there. I think he's like, hey, you know, he's definitely not going to he's not going to interview with anyone where he don't think he can win. Like, he wants to
Mhm.
interview with the Chargers in the Atlanta position where he think, hey, I have a chance. And again, I said this last week, like, hey, if Mike McCarthy doesn't come back, the Cowboys would have been a hot team to be coaching for. And I think he probably would have even interviewed for that. But the Jim Harbaugh thing, I think, is really interesting because he has a
Mhm.
home right now. Yeah, the whole scandal last year with him in Michigan and the sign stealing and all that stuff. I get it, but and he won the national championship. But why wouldn't you want to keep going and winning national championships with that program? And then another thing that you mentioned also yesterday, with Nick Saban leaving, and how many Alabama kids are entering the transfer portal?
Yeah.
Like the Michigan's opportunity to stay relevant is right here and right now. You
Mhm.
know, if especially if Alabama players are just leaving, just like Saban did.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really interesting take with the whole with that situation with Jim Harbaugh. And yeah, the only other teams that I heard about was the Titans. I mean,
Okay.
from what I saw, if I'm not mistaken, they interviewed like 7 to 8 coaches.
Oh,
Antonio
wow.
Pierce was
Yeah,
one of them too.
that's news to me, so yeah, thank you for the update. I did not
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And it was a lot from what I saw. It was a lot of like defensive coordinators,
Mm.
like I said, I know Antonio Pierce was one of them, and Dan Quinn was one of them.
Does that
And I
surprise
can't
you?
remember the other.
Sorry, I don't mean to interject, but you said something interesting. Does that
No, no,
surprise
no,
you
no,
that they're
no,
hiring or they're interviewing defensive-minded people? So to me, it
no, not at
does.
all.
Not at all because
Really? Why?
you got like you said a few minutes ago, it's quarterback-driven league. The Titans,
Mm,
if you're gonna be all in on Levis or even Willis, I don't Willis is another topic. I don't know why. It seems like they kinda given up on him already. I'm not really sure why. Um, but if you're gonna go in on all in on Levis, you gotta pair him with that coach. So
mm,
I personally think the Titans defense is not the issue. Were they astounding last year? I wouldn't say they were astounding,
right.
but they have been consistently strong. To me, it was the offense, and on top of that, more than likely Henry is moving on. So
Mm.
now you're losing your best offensive weapon. So you're gonna have to get, in my opinion, an offensive-minded coach who's gonna be creative, and scheme very well. Because in the
So let me
past,
let.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. No, no, okay. I'm sorry.
just because in the past, like Tannehill was decent, but at the end of the day, the Titans, in my opinion, from what I watched, and you saw that in their unexpected 2019, 2020 AFC Championship run, that when in doubt, they handed it to Derek, and he would carry the load.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be a reality next year. More than likely, he will move on to another team.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so just real quick, I'll run down again the Titans, just so you can hear what I mean. The
Hmm.
Titans interviewed so far. So the Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, the Panthers
Okay.
offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan,
Okay.
Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kefka, Ravens defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, Raiders, Antonio
Antonio
Pierce, but that
Pierce.
he's been
Yep.
signed. Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, and Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. So
Okay.
it doesn't surprise me because I'll mention 2 names right now: Ravens
Mhm.
defensive coordinator McDonald and Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. The best defense in the league. I mean, winning right now revolves around
Mhm.
defense. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want that as your coach? And they're coming from again, the season, even though the season ended early for the Cowboys last week, but their defense, I mean, how many times we talked about their
Mhm.
defense last year? Same with the Ravens. The Ravens do have probably the best defense right now going into the playoffs, playing their first game today against the Texans. So I'm not surprised. And plus the if you take away I'll put it like this also, the coaching pool right now is probably one of the best coaching pools that we've seen in a long time with available coaches
Okay.
that's on the market.
Yeah.
Um, but
100%.
then, yeah, but then you also have coaches that again has been playing on great teams, coaching great teams,
Mhm.
and it's sort of like okay, what's next sort of thing. And I think that's what the Dan Quinns are doing. That's what the Mike McDonalds are doing. They're seeing what's next for them. Now, another thing also is once, for instance, Antonio Pierce going to the Raiders, he's a defensive minded guy. He
Yep.
needs a good offensive coordinator. The answer could be
Sure.
right there. Also, they can sell him, to come up there and play coach with him. That'd be great too. I just think for the opening, not every one of these guys who interview will obviously get the job, but they'll probably be being a coordinator somewhere else, or they'll just stay with their team. But I think with as many open positions as there are this year, that to test the market, not just with head coaches that are available, but who's the next um Texans head coach name? I'm sorry, I'm brain freezing right now.
D'Amico Ryans.
D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah.
Like whoever's the next D'Amico is, hey, let's try to get him in here right now. And again, these young coaches, I think are it right now. I mean, granted, yes, Bill Belichick is out there. Again, Jim Harbaugh is out there. But these young coaches like the Shanahans,
Mm-hmm.
and the Rams head coach,
Sean McVay.
I can't think of his Vic McVay.
McVay.
Like these young coaches are in, these young coaches are in right now.
Yeah.
And so no, to your ultimate question, it doesn't surprise me like the coaching carousel from coordinators that's going on also right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, those are great points. The one thing I thought about that I want to slide in there while we're still on the coaches is, yeah, D'Amico's been unbelievable. He's a defensive-minded coach. But for every D'Amico, you get someone like Brandon Staley, who was allegedly a defensive-minded coach, totally did horrible, totally botched that job.
Yeah.
And the other sliver to that is exactly to what you said. Think about what you said. Who are two of the hottest coaches in the league right now? Shanahan and McVay. Both young coaches, both coaches that have found sustained success, both offensive-minded coaches.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just surprised that it seems like that's what right now is trending. And think about the last two Super Bowls. McVay won. Andy Reid won. Andy Reid, while not a young guy, he is an offensive-minded coach.
But counter to that is that, again, D'Amico Ryans defensive minded. And then I'll also bring up, even though he didn't have a great season because everything that happened in New York, but Robert Saleh, a defensive minded guy. And so
that's fair.
I think I'm not surprised either
McDermott
way.
Would be another, now that I'm thinking about it, Sean, I think is his first name. His last name's definitely McDermott, the Bills coach. He's a defensive-minded guy.
Oh,
He is. I know they haven't reached the promised land yet, but he's made the Bills a contender. Obviously, Allen.
Yeah, every year. Yeah.
They have a lot to do with that. But
yeah.
Interesting.
So, but
Zach
that's
Taylor, though, another
really
one.
Into it.
Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to say about Harbaugh is, obviously, Harbaugh is definitely the most intriguing candidate this year. I would be shocked if he goes back to Michigan, and the only reason I say that is, to your point, I think at some point there is going to be punishment that comes down on Michigan and the program, and I think it's going to result in some kind of postseason ban. Harbaugh, his name, I would say for the past 3 years, give or take, every offseason, his name has come up on, hey, are you going to go back to the NFL? Because he did have success in the NFL with your boys. And before this year, he was real quick to shut it down immediately. This year, he is not. This year, he's now interviewing. And I think, and this is totally speculation, I think he has heard things.
Okay, Shefty.
I'm a little bit better than Shefty. No, that was a joke. That was a joke. I've not earned what he's earned. I think he knows that something's coming, just like with Carroll, 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
He knows there's a storm coming, and he's trying to get out before he can.
Yeah.
Is what it seems like. And that's why I think he will end up in the NFL.
Yeah, that's
probably with either the Falcons or Chargers.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that is this week's coaching carousel. We'll see where we at next week with the coaches that may or may not get hired next week. Let's move on to last week playoff games and the wild card. So I do want to start off with, before we talk about on our topics,
I will bow down to I will bow down to you.
Thank
Mm.
Joey. What are you bowing down to, please? Can you let the audience know?
I can't believe you got the Packers for this.
Dude, I was like, what the heck? I can't
That
believe,
was unbelievable.
dude. But that
Now,
game. So, our
I will never doubt you again.
two of the topics that we're going to talk about today is the biggest surprise from last week and the biggest disappointment from last week. But we will not talk about the biggest disappointment being the Cowboys because we all know, again, we all heard it every single day from Sunday until right now about how the Cowboys was disappointment. We get it. We understand. Yes, we know. So, and the Packers surprised everybody, but that's the easy one. Don't want to go there. So I want you to give me your biggest surprise from last week besides the Green Bay Packers upsetting the Dallas Cowboys first.
Biggest surprise, without a doubt, was definitely was to me the Rams losing. I really thought the Rams had that. And listen, I am glad. I'm glad that the Lions. I would like to see the Lions make a run now. But yeah, I did not think the Lions would win that game. So that one shocked me. So I guess on a positive surprise, that's cool that the Lions won. Goff played well. The whole team stepped up. It was close, which was good. Probably not probably. I mean, I think there's little doubt that in terms of viewability, that was the most entertaining game of the weekend. Because other than that, the games were, to me, they were kind of like, they were not great.
Yeah,
They were not fun to watch. But
yeah.
so that was my most positive surprise. My biggest disappointment,
Besides the Cowboys.
obviously. I mean, am I really disappointed that the Cowboys lost?
I know, you're probably not.
The Browns defense. Now, I picked the Texans to win, but I had the Texans winning 27-23.
Yeah. I don't think anyone saw that blowout coming.
I mean, I don't know how you go from being an unstoppable defense. I believe I'm double checking, but I think statistically they were like the number one defense in the league to just.
Yeah. Yep, they were.
I mean, it looked like a totally different team. I don't like they looked confused and.
Or the Ravens could have been the number one defense.
Actually, according to this, the Kansas City Chiefs are the number one defense in terms of yards allowed, but that doesn't. Sometimes statistics confuse me. Like what you're seeing doesn't add up to what it says. Yeah. So yeah, those were my two ones.
Yeah. So my biggest surprise last week. Sorry, it has to be against your boys, but Baker Mayfield, he looked like he's done it. He's been doing this for a while. He had so much swagger in that game. Like he was just unstoppable, and your boys did not have an answer for him. I don't know if he can sustain that this weekend against the Lions. Maybe he can, but last week, just talking about last week, like Tampa Bay. I mean, there were some deep balls that I see him throw to Mike Evans that was just like a 2 inch, 3 inches away from him catching that and being big plays, and could have been a way higher score than what it was. But my surprise will go out to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks. I think they, where was this team the whole year? I mean, and again, granted, I know you and I talked about a lot about how your boys have been looking, how they look like Nick Sirianni has lost the room. But to that extent, to where the Tampa Bay doesn't look like a 9-8 team. So yeah, kudos to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks. My biggest disappointment. So again, I was gonna go with your boys too, but they've been disappointing since they lost to the 49ers.
Yeah.
After that loss, they've gone. So I didn't want to pick on them. However, I do wanna, and this may sound a little crazy, but the Miami Dolphins, from the coaching to the defense to the water boy was my biggest disappointment. And so I say
Okay.
that, right? I get it. You they have trouble. They have trouble with playing it, against top teams. Uh at that game it was so freezing cold. A team from Miami, I get it. And I think Tua is like 0 and 5, 0 and 4, 0 and 5 or something like that, and like games that are like, under below 32 or I don't know, something like that. Anyway, in the cold he doesn't play well. But you knew all these factors leading up to that game, and they looked absolutely horrible on Sunday against the Bills. Like, did I expect them to win? I didn't expect them to win, but I did not expect. I mean, I'm sorry, against Kansas City last week. And when they played Kansas City, I said the Bills. I meant to say
Yeah.
Kansas City, but uh, I did not expect Kansas City to come out there. I expected them to come out there and play well, but at least Miami to keep it a close game against them. Tyreek Hill in the beginning of the game came out to Arrowhead and had on a tank top and some shorts, and then he's trying to do, I guess, a mental thing. And then the next, when he's suited up and he's on the sideline, he's like, bro, it's cold out here. No, duh, dude. Like, and why did you come out here with like a tank top and the short off trying to, mentally prepare for the elements? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But again, I didn't see a 26-7 game against Kansas City. We all have seen what Kansas City has been going through as far as, the drops, the frustrations of the team. But that all went away against the Miami Dolphins. And what I think that actually did for Kansas City was actually made them say, hey, we can play against the Bills today,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, Miami, I think they have so many weapons. Their defense is good. And that's another thing also. They have one of the best running games, and they didn't even get that off. Like, it was barely any running plays being ran. Like, it did not look. I don't know what happened, why they deviate away from the game plan, but they did not play like the Miami Dolphins we've been seeing this entire year, and so that's why they were my biggest disappointment.
That's actually a good pick, and I'm glad that you brought that you mentioned that, because it made me think of another point. Again, I'm going to limit the Cowboys talk, but if the Cowboys did not lose this weekend, I think the dominant stories that you would have heard is how bad Cleveland's defense was. Because, by the way, we were right, just so nobody jumps on us thinking that we don't do our research. I accidentally had the statistics set to the postseason. If you do the 2023 regular season, the Cleveland Browns they had the number one defense in terms of yards allowed. And you were right about the Ravens. The Ravens led in sacks.
Okay.
Cleveland teams were only averaging 270 yards total per game against the Browns in the regular season.
It didn't look like it on
Texans. They let Stroud alone throw for 274. So again, I think that would have been a way bigger story, again, if the Cowboys didn't lose. And the Dolphins collapse at the end of the season was actually really bad. It was overshadowed by my Birds, but the Dolphins should have had the number 2 seed. All you had to do was beat the Bills in Miami. So, yeah, the Dolphins, just similar to the Eagles, they looked like a team defeated. I know they had a lot of injuries. Everybody has a lot of injuries at this point in the season. So, yeah, I am glad you picked the Dolphins. And I want to do one more bonus note.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of positive surprise. As a surprise positive shout out. Positive surprise to the fans in Buffalo and the fans in KC. Because the fans in Buffalo shoveled all the snow on Monday.
Did you see they were back out there yesterday or the day before yesterday?
Were they really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So the Buffalo put out an ad. The Bills put out an ad that, again, $20 an hour, but bring your own shovel this time, please. And people were lined up with shovels outside the stadium waiting to get in the shovel.
That's awesome. Yeah. And the Kansas City fans, For all the ones who
Mhm.
stayed through that entire game, you're braver than I am, dude. Like, they would show them on
Seriously.
TV, and they didn't look happy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
how you did that. That looked
Yeah.
brutal.
No, for sure. Shout out to
So,
Bills Mafia, man. That is
oh,
awesome, dude.
man.
Hey, kudos to them because if that happened here,
No.
I stay my
No.
butt right in the
Yeah.
house, bro.
Yeah. See that happened in Philly. I'm not gonna get up and shovel in the snow. Are you kidding me?
That's hilarious. Good point, though, man.
You
Good
hire
point.
people to do that. Don't you have like stadium
Seriously.
maintenance?
Oh, that was
Oh
awesome.
man.
So all right, so that was the last weekend. So let's jump into this weekend. And we have a plethora of games. We have two today, two tomorrow. Today we're starting with Houston and Baltimore. Then at nightcap, Green Bay, my boys, the 49ers. Then we
Mhm.
got tomorrow we got Tampa Bay and Detroit, and then the nightcap, Kansas City and Buffalo. So I shall ask you, Joseph, which of these four games are you excited to see and why?
I mean, I know it's low hanging fruit, but I'm gonna take the obvious one: Bills and Chiefs. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if
I
we
see.
even get like half of what we got in their divisional matchup 2 years ago, when they went into overtime, and it was that just back like Bills scored, Chiefs scored. You know what? Bills scored with what? What was it like? 45 seconds left, and
Mm-hmm.
then Mahomes brought them all the
Kansas
way
City came.
down.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be, and also the fact that this is the first. Not only is this the first postseason matchup of them in Buffalo, I didn't realize this. This will be only the second time that Patrick and Josh will play each
Mm-hmm.
other in Buffalo. The only other time was
Oh
in the
yeah,
20.
yeah.
The only other time was in the
Uh-huh.
2020 season, and there were no fans allowed. So this is really
Mm-hmm.
going to be the first time that he really gets the full effect of Orchard Park. So
And this is the first time that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are on the roll in the playoffs since Patrick
yes, I
Mahomes
didn't think of it.
started.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a lot of good storylines with this one.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
hopefully it lives up to it.
Yeah, that's good. For me, I am so my original was obviously my
Yeah.
boys. Because and not just because they're my boys, but the way that Green Bay looked yesterday. I mean, last
Hmm.
week.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, all right, hold up. Was that a cowboy hiccup,
Yeah.
or is Green Bay gonna really bring it to us today? But I didn't want to take that route because obviously I could talk about my boys all day, and I didn't want to do
Hmm.
that. But what I am excited to see actually is the Texans Ravens game too, and
Okay.
I'll
So
keep
the
it in the
first one
AFC
today.
with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll keep it in the AFC with you because the way that CJ looked last week, I am
Yeah.
so like what you said yesterday. What you said a couple of minutes ago was my point. Uh, the Browns were the number one
Yeah.
defense in the league, and CJ shredded them.
Yeah.
Now they're paying another top defense. Can they repeat that?
Yeah.
And and I won't spoil my. I'll give a little insight on because we're gonna have our picks in a little bit. But Ravens are my pick to right this second they are. But as I'm talking, it could change to the Texans.
Okay.
Because the way that the Texans looked last week and what D'Amico is doing to that team and the coach of the year and what the offensive rookie of the year is doing, it is it is, you know, I can't put into words how the defense is tough. Like I think the Ravens, they have their hands full today. Um, we all know how the Ravens don't get far in the playoffs. They have great seasons and then they just stumble. Sort of like they're like the AFC Cowboys, in my opinion. I think today's game is a huge game for them just to be in the championship game. Um, uh, and I think that'll be like a little push for Lamar and them to maybe just have a little taste of, hey, we're close to the Super Bowl. But the Texans can't spoil that. And so I'm excited to see. I think this is going to be a close game, closer than anyone think.
Okay.
Um, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans take down the Ravens today. It is in Baltimore.
Thankfully, we don't have to wait
Last
too long. And that's the
Yeah,
that
we don't
two
have to
two
wait
and a
so
half
long. Yeah, it's
hours.
coming.
We got kickoff.
Yep,
So
yep, yep. So yeah, that would be my
I hope it
my
happens.
my
I would love to see the Texans. Like, listen, hey,
yeah,
CJ was my
yeah,
2023 MVP. So
yeah. So yeah, I am excited for that also. So with that, I say let's hop into
so
our
real
pick.
fast, I have one
Yeah, yeah,
request with the picks.
yeah. Please
Can we
go
do
for
the
it.
49ers game last? I know schedule wise
Yes,
it's okay, cool. So other
yes,
than that,
yes,
I don't
yes. We
care
can.
what we could start with the Ravens Texans and just kind of go chronologically if you want.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. So
Cool.
I kick it off to you then. Let's get into the picks. And let's also give an X factor. Why you taking the team? Who do you
Okay.
think could be the reason, or what do you think could be the reason why? So let's start with Houston, Baltimore, and your X factor.
hmm So X Factor Houston Baltimore. Does it the X Factor not a specific player, but the running game in general from both
Mm-hmm.
teams.
Okay.
Whatever team wins, I think they win it because they do it mostly on the ground, and that
Mm.
running back gets at least 2 touchdowns.
Mm.
Now, I think that will be the Ravens. I am taking the Ravens. I would love to see a close game. I hope you're right. I hope it's entertaining. I when I sit down and really look at it and I think about the momentum that Baltimore has, to me this feels a little bit like Pittsburgh Buffalo, where again you got to call a spade a spade. The Ravens are just the better team, and I think they will win 41-21.
Wow. Wow.
So, and I think they do a
Wow.
lot of that on the back of Edwards and Hill. And I mean, Lamar will get like probably at least one touchdown throwing, but and, I mean, even the legs of Lamar too. You can factor that into the run game. So
Yeah. My So I'm gonna stick with the Ravens as my
okay,
pick to win. I'm gonna say it's a 24-21 game.
okay,
My X factor is the Ravens defense though. I
okay,
think they need to be them. Now, the rust of having a bye week, a little concerned about. And again, I'll say the same thing with my 49ers later when we talk about that. And the bye weeks, yes, it's nice to get rest. But again, those games last week, the game last week that Houston played against the Browns, they have a lot of momentum right now. And so can Baltimore's defense slow them down. We know Lamar is going to be Lamar, so there's no need for me to say, "Oh, my X factor is Lamar. I think he's going to, do this."
okay.
Blah blah blah. We know
This is a
Lamar is
big
Lamar, and
game
he's
for
going to
him for
do.
his legacy, though. I mean, like I know
It
right now
is.
it's easy to say
It
Lamar's
is.
Lamar, but unfortunately, the what we've seen from Lamar in the postseason has not been good. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was my point earlier.
yeah,
That's why again, I if I obviously it was a crazy pick last week, me picking Green Bay, but um picking Houston from like I'm so tempted to do so, but I
yeah,
think again that doing that two times in a row to two good defenses
hmm
is hard.
yeah,
Um, is anything possible? Yes. I just don't know if Houston can do that because again,
mhm,
we don't know much about Houston because this is their
yeah,
first season in the
hmm
spotlight. With CJ, with D'Amico, this is their first time in the spotlight like this. So I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon just yet. It's still a successful season. Shout out
oh
to
yeah,
Houston
without a doubt,
for
yeah,
yeah for playing the way that they played. But again, if Baltimore defense comes out playing like Baltimore defense, like they did against the 49ers, I think that this game is theirs for the taking. But again, I still think it's close because again, it's Houston is no like their defense is good too.
yeah,
But I just think that there's a big stop for the Ravens defense against Houston's offense. Lamar does something amazing and then they win the game. That's how I see it going. 24-21, I got the Ravens. Tomorrow's afternoon game, Tampa Bay
Lions,
at
right?
Detroit. And yeah, Tampa Bay at Detroit. What's your X factor?
X Factor. So this one changed after a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So my X Factor, I am going with a specific player. I'm going
Okay.
with the Lions safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Mm.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I don't know why he did this, but he came out and he's talking a lot of smack and said basically that Tampa would be a great team if they had a quarterback.
Oh yes, I did see that. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know why he felt the need for shots fired there, but
yeah. Mm.
he made that real interesting. And listen, even if you win, like you need to show up. Like you need to get at least one interception, in my opinion. Here, like you need to pick him off at least once. Uh, on the other side, I mean Baker's the pretty obvious choice if you need to do an X factor for Tampa because Baker's got a little mouth, so he did fire back. He didn't. He has a hard time letting sleeping dogs lie. In the end, I do think the Lions do it, and I do think they do it pretty convincingly. And I got Lions winning 37-21. I I think we underestimate. Well, one, I mean, again, like we've said multiple times, Eagles were a broken team last week. It was also in Tampa. Now you got to go to Detroit with a fan base that is on cloud nine right now. That place is going to be probably louder, than the Chiefs Stadium gets. I don't think Tampa's ready for that. I think Tampa all year has ebbed and flowed, and they would follow up a great game with a terrible game. And this is where that inconsistency comes back to bite them.
So I'll start with this. Right now on ESPN Bet, the Bucks are a 6-point underdog.
Okay.
Not only do I think they cover, I think the Bucks win.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
I think the Bucks win 31-28.
Okay.
I think that my X factor, though, for this to happen, has to be the receivers of the Bucks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To get to that, wherever that ball is dropping down towards when Baker throws it, to be there to catch it. I think Tampa's defense is playing great right now. I think that the offense is just gelling right now for Tampa Bay. But I also believe that yes, it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be so. From what I saw, the average ticket for this game today in Detroit is I think like $1,100 to go see them play. So I think it's going to be a madhouse. I think now this is last week I had the Lions. I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even in our pool thing, I picked the Lions. So
Yeah,
I mean,
you
I
did.
have a
Yeah.
backup there. But on here, I'm gonna take the Bucks, and
Okay.
because of what I saw last week, and also the way that the receivers last week looked for the Rams against Detroit, I think the
Okay.
same thing is going to happen because I don't think you brought up about safeties. I think the safeties, I think that their backfield for the Lions, if I'm not mistaken, they have a few injuries. They aren't the
Yeah.
best right now as far as health wise. And with the way that Baker liked throwing the deep ball, like he showed last week, finding the open receivers, I think that that's going to be a huge part of the game. And I am taking the Bucks now on here to say that they will win. If they don't, I'm still perfect in our other league, but on here, I'm going to take the Bucks. So,
Okay.
and now let's move on to what you're excited to see tomorrow. The nightcap, the last game of the divisional round, Kansas City at Buffalo. Your X factor and who you got?
X factor is the Bills' offensive line. Kansas City showed last week that their front is not to be underestimated. Karlaftis had a big game. He's starting to kind of come into his own and show why he was a first-round pick. Obviously, Chris Jones is always, you got to be concerned about him. The the way they, obviously Miami wasn't Miami, but a lot of that I think did have to do with the pressure they got on Tua. You mentioned how they just completely shut down Achan and the Miami run game in general. If they can give Josh time, and thankfully the Bills have been one of the more consistent offensive lines in the league, the Bills should walk away with a victory, which I think will happen. I am taking the Bills, and they will finally slay the dragon and take down that thorn in their side, and they will win 28-17 over the Kansas City Chiefs.
Like it. So you're gonna laugh at me.
Okay.
But so I'm picking the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
And the reason why, because at the beginning of the season, I did have the Kansas City Chiefs going to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And so I'm not gonna deviate to that just yet.
Okay. Hey, listen, I respect it. I did it last year, so.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna go with them. But my X factor is what I think you're gonna laugh at.
I think I know where this
Harrison
is going.
Butker.
Oh, never mind. I thought you were gonna say Taylor Swift.
Oh, that would have been good.
I was like, damn, that's a good one.
Hey, if Taylor Swift is in the house, the Kansas City Chiefs are winning. But
why Harrison?
I think it's because I think that's going to be the deciding factor. I think this is a 27-24 game, and I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a recap of what you said, a repeat of what you said about how they Bill scored 48 seconds left, and then Kansas City come driving back down. And I think it's going to be a field goal win for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I still don't think Josh Allen gets over that hump of beating Mahomes just yet. Because we just know the way that. So another thing is that this would be a different story if it was like a neutral site or something like that, maybe. But the Kansas City played in the cold last week. Buffalo played in the cold last week. I don't think the weather will have any factor in this at all. And so with that, I taking Mahomes and taking him leading the charge. Finding Kelsey last minute field goal, and so that's why I'm taking the Chiefs.
Okay.
And
that leaves us with one more game.
Yes, last but not least, we have the 49ers and Packers game. Now, I'm assuming, this is just an assumption, that you wanted to save this for last because you have something to say and you have something to do right now that may cause me to close this computer screen. But I'm going to reserve any...
I would like to set the stage here. So 2 years ago, my dear friend here, Mr. Carlos, got to go to Hawaii for a vacation, and he had a wonderful time, and that's awesome.
Oh, yes.
While he was in Hawaii, his beloved Niners played, at that time, the number one seeded Green Bay Packers, with Aaron Rodgers coming off his, if I'm not mistaken, second year in a row MVP. Nobody gave the Niners a chance. They're like, you got to go into Green Bay. It is frigid. Cold. It is cold. Aaron's going to tear you apart. And the Niners, from some miracle, pulled off the upset. Let us fast forward 2 years in a row. Now the tables have turned, and the Niners are the number one seed. And the Packers have to go into San Fran. And they have, obviously minus Rodgers, more or less the same team. They also have the same coach. It's probably a little salty, to say the least. This is a revenge game that is being underplayed and not sold as a revenge game. The Packers, because of the X factor, which I'm actually saying is the coach, Matt LaFleur, who will outduel Mr. Shanahan. Jordan Love will put up a career game, announce to the world that he has arrived, and Mr. Rodgers, who? The Packers will upset the 49ers 32-24, setting up for an NFC championship almost 100 years in the making between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. As in the words of the greatest Disney movie of all time, it's a tale as old as time. Go Pack, go.
I can't believe you just said that. Oh my God, go Pack, go. So, obviously, we all know who I'm going for. We all know, why I'm here for. We all know who I'm going for. X factor for me will be Kittle.
Okay.
Right here, number 85. That'll be my X factor right there. I think he will have a outstanding game. I think the Cowboys last week just looked lost. I think the pressure was too much for them. I think Green Bay had a game plan for Dallas, and it worked. It's great, right? But Shanahan said something really cool during his interview this week. Somebody asked him, "So, how did you go about preparing for this week? Even before it was decided who you was going to play next week." He said, "Well, watching the Cowboys game in the second quarter, I started preparing for the Packers. In the second quarter, he started preparing for the Packers. So he knew right then and there that we need to start getting ready for this team right now. I think we will be well prepared for them. They're a young team that had good success against the Cowboys, had a good season. Jordan Love has played them amazing, but that stops now. Purdy will light them up. I think our defense will shut them down. I think this is a 35-20 game, if that, maybe 14. I think by halftime, we are going to have a pretty good lead. I mean, we're going in a half. I'm talking about 21-7 maybe, if that.
Okay.
So I'm taking my boys. I see what you're doing here. I'm hinting that you kind of want to do a Carlos, mind trick thing where, I'm going with the Packers to get me an upset like Carlos did last week. No, Joseph. You had your opportunity last week. You didn't take it, buddy.
It's a little bit like that. However, the other part of it is I have doubted the Packers all year. Like, I have picked against them. I had them getting 3 wins, picking number 2 in the draft. Like, all year I doubted the Packers. At some point, I got to stop. Like, at some point, I have to believe what I'm seeing on the field.
Hey, so, next week, when the 49ers win this week, next week, when we do our next episode, can you wear like a 49ers hat or something like that? If
you let me borrow a 49ers hat. I still have your Garoppolo jersey here. I will wear the hat and the jersey.
Oh, can you wear the jersey? Yeah. No, you don't need the hat. Wear the jersey.
I will wear the jersey next week if the 49ers win. I will agree.
When the 49ers win, I expect you to wear a jersey next week, Joey. Thank you so much.
Listen, obviously, if they win, I'll be very happy for you.
Thank you.
I think the likelihood of 2 number 1 seeds making it to the conference championship game. Oh, that's awesome! I've seen that before.
I was like, what? Are you celebrating right now? Like the game hasn't even happened yet.
There's something about this Packers team. But, hey, that's what a lot of people said about the Browns and the Cowboys and numerous other teams. So
we shall see tonight.
We shall see
tonight. All right. Well, you know what it's time for, Joseph? It is time for Joey's rant. Joey, what do you have to rant about today?
So, We're jumping into college football. There was a story, or a couple days ago, a gentleman named Cam McCormick. He is a tight end, was approved by the NCAA for his 9th year of eligibility. And he will be playing tight end for the Miami Hurricanes. What is college football anymore? The NCAA has lost the right to say college football. Just call it semi-pro football. This dude is 25 years old, and he's going to be playing college football. This dude started in 2016, was his freshman year. Let me put that in perspective for you. 2016 was my senior year of college. I turned 30 last week. This dude is still playing college football. What are we doing? This kid, at this point, entering his 9th year, could have a PhD right now. And he's still playing college football. This guy was part of a class. His freshman class included Justin Herbert, Nick Bosa, Ed Oliver, and Jalen Hurts. All players that are now considered veterans of the NFL. What is this? I don't understand. Somebody, please explain to me COVID year and red shirt and all this eligibility crap. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a bunch of excuses. Listen, I don't hold ill will towards this guy. He followed the rules and he applied for eligibility. My issue is, why is the NCAA letting this happen? College football, between this and Florida State being left out of the college football playoffs and the transfer portal, this is just turning into like a giant enigma of nothingness. Like it just, you go, come as you go, come as you are. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Where do they put these players? Do they leave them? Do they allow them to stay in athletic housing? Do you imagine a 25-year-old rooming with an 18-year-old freshman? Some of these players are married with kids. Could you imagine telling your wife, hey, honey, I really want to play college football again, even though I'm like 29 years old? Are you okay with staying in athletic housing where you got to share the restrooms with a bunch of football players? Like, what? I don't get it. Another example of this, Sam Hartman. Guy was 24 last year, still playing college football. Let me tell you something about Sam Hartman. First time I saw Sam Hartman, he was still with Wake Forest. They cut to the sideline. They show this dude in full pads and a jersey with a headset on and this like mountain man beard. I sit there, I go, man, that offensive coordinator is like super into team spirit. He's in full pads and everything. Next thing you know, commercial break, guys running onto the field. I'm like, oh, that's their quarterback. I don't get it. Listen, if you're not good enough to get into the NFL by like 24, 25 years old, man, maybe it's just time to find another career. I don't understand. They're called student athletes. There needs to be a cap on students when it comes to athletes. Like, could you imagine? You know what this reminded me of? So there's an episode of South Park where he's training Pee-wee hockey. And they go play like the intermission at a Colorado Avalanche game, but the Avalanche had to like quit. So they're playing professional hockey players, the little like 9-year-old kids. And they're getting like hit and they play the game really rough. That's what this is like. Think about an 18-year-old cornerback who has to cover a 25-year-old tight end. It doesn't make any sense. Just
to put this into some perspective for those who are watching and wondering about this rant and why he's playing his 9th year of college. So McCormick suffered season-ending injuries in 2018, 19, 20, and 21. And so he petitioned to play an extra year. And from his statements, he wants to finish what he started all those years back. but the rent is much like if you injured yourself, you're growing up, leave it alone, dude. So
Like,
I agree with this rant.
why would you want to risk re-injury too? Like from McCormick's perspective, I don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense. Like you got again. I use Sam Hartman as an example. Yeah, he looked great his last couple of years at Wake Forest. Yeah, he looked great at Notre Dame last year because he's 24 years old. Like, and all he has to do is throw and beat corners that are 19, 20 years old. Like the development is significant there. Like, I just don't get it.
I just don't get it.
Like, I miss the times where you go, you get you're there for your 4 years, and you go. This guy McCormick and Hartman, and because I don't want to keep ragging on him. He reminds me of the guy that went to college and joined a fraternity, and then comes back when he's 40 to the football games. And goes to all the current fraternity guys are like in their 20s and go, yeah, guys, back in my day, we took little Johnny, put him in a trash can and rolled him down Main Street. It was epic. And all the 20-year-olds are looking like, who are you? Who's little Johnny? You went to college in the 70s. Nobody likes that guy. I don't know what college football is anymore. But listen, I hope he's successful. I hope he doesn't get re-injured. Knock on wood. He played by the rules. He got the eligibility. Good for him, but something needs to change.
Awesome. And that was another Joey's rant. Love it, dude. Love it, love it, love it. Man, what another great episode. Thanks, Joey, for your amazing talents of ranting and your wisdom in sports.
Sorry, you froze, man.
Yeah, there's episode 20 in the books. Probably our best one yet. Those who are listening, again, we thank you guys for listening. Yeah. Oh man. Well, hey, compared to last week, I think, and guys, again, everyone who's listening, we had some technical difficulties last week, but we resolved it. We're good. Feeling much better.
We're getting better every week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is the
and it
best
take us
one
9
yet.
years.
So stupid. But that's it for this episode, guys. We thank you guys for listening. Find us on Socratic Sports on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Am I missing anything? I don't think so.
I mean, I'm sure people have taken our podcast and put it on random sites too.
Yeah. We're probably somewhere across the world. We're probably in China on some kind of. They probably think we're the biggest things in China. If you're listening
we're
for
basically
China, we
another
love
version
you.
of Mr. Worldwide. It's Pitbull and then us. No big deal.
Hey, if you're listening to us in the Philippines, we love you in the Philippines. In Thailand, we love you. In Congo, we love you. Wherever you're listening from, we love you.
American football's really popular.
Maybe they just enjoy us bantering, bro. But thank you guys.
Looking at me, why is that guy so angry all the time?
Why is he so, what is a rant? They see your Joey's rant. But yeah, so we will see you guys next week, same time. Saturdays, 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and 2 p.m. Pacific Time. I'm trying to remember all of them.
No, I get it. Yeah, time zones are confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing.
Numbers are.
Thank you guys again. We'll check you guys next week. You want to lead us out with some music, Joseph?
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Go Pack, go.